Welcome to the WalterFootball.com podcast. This is episode 247. We're doing week 13 NFL picks against the spread. Joined once again by Jacob Camenker from NBC Sports Boston. Jacob, how are you? And how was your week 12?
I'm doing pretty well today, and my week 12 went well. I ended up going 8-6, so pretty solid record. But I hit 5 of my 6 bigger unit plays ended up hitting, so I was very much in the green this week. Or is it in the black or in the green? I never know. But it was a positive week for me.
I think either one works. So it's all good. So yeah, I mean, I was in the black as well, or the green, I suppose. Plus 10, 15 on the week. So it's good to be above 4 figures again. Unfortunately, two bad picks, mainly Sunday night. I think I kind of I panicked a bit when I was making my super contest picks, and I chose Green Bay as one of the picks, even though I like San Francisco early in the week. I was concerned that Kelvin Beachum wasn't going to play for the Jets. So that led me to pick Green Bay. So I went 3-2 in the super contest instead of 4-1, but still a good week overall. 9-5, I believe, on the picks overall. So it's still pretty good. I'm looking forward to the slate. We were talking before we started recording. You said you like the slate a lot, and I do too. But it sounds like you like it a little bit more, right?
Yeah, there are a lot of picks on here that I'm just like super confident in. I don't usually lock in picks before we do the podcast, but I've already locked in like 2 plays of 3 and 4 units, which I never do without first hearing if I'm absolutely wrong about something. So I hope we're on the same side there. But there are just a lot of games that I think the spread's off on, so I think we can capitalize on that. There are some that I'm like very torn on too, though, so I may flip on a couple of them depending on what we think. But there's at least like 5 ones that I really, really like.
Nice. Yeah, I can't wait. And this guy can't wait for my evaluations of players, too. He's on every week to tell me that I can't evaluate players. So I'm beginning to believe him. I think he might have a point. Let's get to the Thanksgiving games. The Bears are at the Lions. This is the first game. Usually it's a snoozer, and that's probably the case again because the Lions usually are not a very good team. And the Bears are favored on the road. They opened as a 1-point favorite. Now they're up to 3. Lots of public money on the Bears. So are you with the public here?
I am, and this is one of the picks that I already locked in. I locked in at Bears -3 earlier in the day. There's a big reason for this, and it's because I heard that Jeff Driscoll is questionable for this game with a hamstring injury. So we're looking at this as possibly an injured Jeff Driscoll going up against the Bears defense on a short week. And I know the Bears defense isn't as good as they've been in seasons past, or at least in the last couple of years. But they're still pretty strong against the pass, and they're not as good against the run. Also, hi, Rick. I know you're coming for me this week, but I'm not going to let you make the fantasy playoffs for the first time this year. I will beat you even if I'm eliminated. Anyway, with the Bears, their defense is not as good against the run, but the Lions don't have a strong run game. Bo Scarborough did pretty well last week against the Redskins, but he's going to be pretty much all they have. If Driscoll can't play, we're looking at David Blau starting, and Blau is an undrafted free agent from Purdue, and he was like okay in the preseason for the Browns, but he's nothing special. So I think the Bears just have the advantage here. The Lions don't have a good defense. Trubisky had one of his best games of the year when they played a couple weeks ago. So I'm pretty confident that the Bears will cover here. I don't think the Lions score very much. So I've already locked this in for 3 units. And if Jeff Driscoll doesn't play, I'll be even more confident in that pick.
Yeah, is it? I always thought it was David Blow, which sounded more appropriate, I think. But I guess it is Blau. I do like the Bears as well. I don't know if I'm going to bet this game because I don't know if I want to bet or back Mitchell Trubisky is a 3-point road favorite with all the public money coming in on him. Just sounds like dubious, but not nearly as dubious as Jeff Driscoll favored by 4 on the road and getting all that public money last week. We were texting Monday. I still can't believe that line. Like when I saw it, I was just like flabbergasted. And then I saw everyone, like several people on Twitter, including someone you were talking to, said that the Lions were a lock. And I'm like, I was like, am I in the Twilight Zone? Am I going to see like a monster outside my window? Like that's how I kind of felt about that game. And like Trubisky, as bad as he's been, he's definitely a lot better than Driscoll, especially an injured Driscoll. So I'm going to be on the Bears. I might bet this game. I don't know. It might be too late though because the juice is now -115 on the Bears, and If this keeps going, maybe the Bears will be favored by more than 3. So I like your idea to lock this in. And congratulations to anyone who had Bears -2.5. They locked that in. That was I believe that line was up on Monday, but 3 still is a good number considering the circumstances. So I like the Bears with you. I just don't know if I'm going to bet the game.
Yeah, and my whole thing is less about Trubisky and more about I think David Montgomery could have a big game. The Lions are 24th against the run. They're worse against the pass, but obviously Trubisky will hamstring them a bit there. But if they get Montgomery going and they get Trubisky to use his legs a little bit more and really pound the rock, I think they'll have a good time and possibly win this by a touchdown or so. But I can see the apprehension of betting Trubisky as a road favorite too. So I'm never that confident in Trubisky, but given the circumstance of this game, I'm going with everything but Trubisky and betting for the Bears.
That's fair enough. I could definitely see that. And I actually like Trubisky a lot this week in fantasy because of the matchup. I played him a lot on DraftKings last week, and it kind of worked out. Unfortunately, like that wasn't part of my lineup that failed. It was Saquon Barkley just doing nothing. But speaking of DraftKings, might as well get this out of the way. We're sponsored by DraftKings. You can go to DraftKings.com, enter in promo code Walter Football. That's one word, Walter Football, for a bonus with your first deposit. So let's go on to the next game. The 4:00 one should be more interesting. Bills at the Cowboys. This line open up. Cowboys -8 is down to 7 or 6.5 in some books. The action's even. So who do you like in this game?
So I don't like this game very much, and I'm actually going to be on the Cowboys. I think we disagree on this one, spoiler alert, but I think the motivation here actually lies with the Cowboys. They're coming off of a close loss to the Patriots. They kind of got a little bit screwed by the refs by those 2 tripping calls that weren't even remotely close to tripping, and I say that as a New England fan. So that was kind of disappointing for them, and I just think after Jerry Jones came out and said, like, hey, this team should have won this game with better coaching they do. I kind of think, I know Jason Garrett is not a good coach, but there are players on that team that I think will step up. I think the Bills are slightly overrated, and the Bills might be looking to prove themselves, which is why I don't love this game or this spread that much. But if you look at the combined record of the teams the Bills have beaten, it's 25-74. That's double counting the Lions and Jets because they played them twice. If you take those out, it's still roughly similar. Maybe a little bit better winning percentage-wise. But I just think the Cowboys need a big win. This is the perfect spot for them to do it on a short week at home on Thanksgiving. And I just think that they're going to be ready for this one. They'll beat the Bills. Again, I don't love this number, so I'm probably not going to actually bet on the Cowboys. But if I had to pick one side, I'd go with the Cowboys here.
Usually when I find that teams are screwed by bad calls, they tend to kind of struggle the following week because they're always complaining about it, and I think they're answering too many questions from the media, especially on a short week like this. I just don't know if the Cowboys can get over that game. It was such a tough game, and it's very physical in the rain, and it was a grueling way to lose at the end. Especially with that, Amari Cooper catch that looked like a reception and that seemed to give Dallas some hope, and then they lost, and then they heard it from Jerry Jones. I just don't like the psyche of this team right now, and what you said about the Bills proving themselves. I think they view this as kind of like a statement game because they're on national TV, and I find that usually when a good team plays on Thanksgiving like this, they tend to. I wouldn't say the Bills aren't a good team, but like they're at least I think average, and I think they're regarded as good by some people, and they're 8-3. I know they've beaten bad teams, but still, I think they might view this as an opportunity to kind of showcase themselves, and they'll be excited to play on Thanksgiving. Whereas playing on Thanksgiving for Dallas is kind of like old hat at this point with this team because they've been playing on Thanksgiving for a while. I mean, this regime at least. So I just think that the Bills have more to play for. I'm not excited about this game. I'm going to bet 2 units on the Bills. I think this line's a tad too high. The computer says that Dallas should be -6. DVOA says Dallas should be -6. So at least we're getting a 6 with the +6.5 or even the +7. Hopefully it's a +7, but I do like Buffalo a little bit here. And we get a question. Well, do you think Jason, the coach, will get fired? I don't think he will unless they like lose all their games the rest of the year. I think it's going to be the special teams coach that falls on the sword. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't think that Jason Garrett will get fired. I actually bet on a prop a little while back that said, will Jason Garrett be the head coach of the Cowboys for the first game in 2020? And I said yes. That obviously doesn't include the playoffs. It's a regular season we're talking. But I just don't think that they're going to be bad enough for Jerry Jones to justify firing him. Because if he gets a team to the playoffs again, and if they're able to win a game in the playoffs, then he can't fire them. And if they get if they get the division title again, it's going to be hard to part with them then too.
Yeah, and usually Jerry Jones doesn't like to make these decisions. I think he legitimately likes Jason Garrett and doesn't want to fire him. And we've seen him have a slow hook with these coaches. Like it took him years to fire Wade Phillips. And he loves Jason Garrett. So I think Garrett will keep his job. Even if they don't make the playoffs, I think Garrett keeps his job, which sounds crazy, but I think that'll happen. The tryptophan Sunday night or Thursday night game, the Saints at the Falcons. Hopefully we don't all fall asleep during this game. The Saints open up -5. It's up to 6.5. Even 7 in some books. Tons of money on the Saints. Do you like the public? Do you like the public side here?
This is another one I was very torn on, but I'm on the Saints here. I think this is just such a big revenge spot for them. Sean Payton's a better coach than Dan Quinn on a short week, and the Falcons just, they had their 2 big wins. Then things came crashing back down to earth last week. They may have some motivation because if they can beat New Orleans twice in 1 year, that may help save Dan Quinn's job. I think Arthur Blank would like that. But at this point, they don't really have anything to play for, whereas New Orleans, if they win this game, I think they pretty much sew up the NFC South. If they don't do it with that game, all they would have to do is not lose every single game and have the Panthers win every single game the rest of the way to have that happen. So I think the Saints are just playing for more. This spread, I don't love the spread because the possibility of a garbage touchdown with Matt Ryan always looms large. But if it's at -7, I like the Saints. I think that's pretty safe. We should push if there's a garbage touchdown, hopefully. So I'll be on the Saints. I don't know how much I'm going to bet on this one. Maybe a unit or two. But I think the Saints are the right side.
Yeah, I agree. So the last time the Saints played the Falcons, obviously that was a huge upset. Atlanta won. But in that game, Atlanta had Austin Hooper and Devontae Freeman. So it's a big difference there. Whereas the Saints didn't have Alvin Kamara at full strength. In that game, that was Kamara's first game back from injury. He only carried the ball 4 times, and he didn't look like himself. So I think these two teams are going to look a lot different this week. And we saw what Atlanta's capable of last week against the Buccaneers. Like they couldn't stop Jameis Winston, and they couldn't pass protect against Tampa's pass rush, which is Tampa's pass rush is okay. It's just fine. The Saints have a better pass rush. And obviously, if they can't stop Jameis Winston, I think Drew Brees is going to have a big game in a revenge spot. Also, Atlanta Stadium looked pretty empty against the Buccaneers. I don't know if you saw the crowd, but they had a lot of empty seats in that game. I think there's a good chance that the Saints fans will travel to this game pretty well, and they're going to fill up the stadium and make a lot of noise to bother Matt Ryan when he has the ball. I think the Saints could just run away with this game. If this were on a Sunday and it wasn't a short week, I could be like, okay, maybe Atlanta will have enough time to make a good game plan here. But, these short weeks really favor the better team, and the Saints are clearly better. And they're going to be motivated. So I like the Saints. I think they're my favorite play of the Thanksgiving day. So it's going to be 2, maybe 3 units on the Saints.
Yeah, and they're probably my second favorite behind the Bears. But that's just because I'm crazy about fading Jeff Driscoll this week. But the other thing to note, too, what you said, that home field thing is huge for the Falcons because if they don't have home field advantage, they're not very good. And Matty Ice has only been 1-4. Straight up at home this season, which is very uncharacteristic. And I think that one win, came against the Eagles when they really shouldn't have won if Nelson Aguilar could use his hands properly, but he can't. So I think there is no home field advantage right now for Atlanta. And if the Saints invade, I think that makes this potentially a blowout.
Yeah. And I should say happy Thanksgiving to everyone. Probably they might be listening to this after Thanksgiving, but anyway, hope you have a good holiday. Let's go to the Sunday slate. The Packers are at the Giants. This line open up Packers minus 7.5. It's down to 6.5, despite there being almost 90% of the money on the Packers. And looks like the Sharps are on the Giants, which is a little surprising. So are you with the Sharps here?
No, I'm not with the Sharps. I don't understand that at all, really. I think this is a great spot for the Packers. I was against them last week against the 49ers. They got blown out in that game. But good quarterbacks tend to bounce back well from losses. We saw it earlier in the year with Aaron Rodgers. They covered against the Panthers after a horrible loss to the Chargers. They won that game by 10 points. And the Giants are not a good team. They have some nice elements to them. And I think next year, if they shore up some spots on that defense, they could potentially be a much better team and possibly challenge for a wild card spot. But right now, they are not that. They just struggled to contain Mitch Trubisky. I think they let him throw for a couple touchdowns. And they were able to cover against Trubisky. But the Packers offense is a whole lot different than the Bears offense. So I think Rodgers is going to be motivated to prove himself. I think he'll cover the spread fairly easily and kind of put it to the Giants, keep the foot on the gas the whole game, and just prove like, hey, like last week was against a really good team, but we're still also a really good team. So I'm going with the Packers covering, and I'll probably put 3 units on this one, maybe 2 or 3 units. I haven't looked at the injury report for this one yet, but I think 2 to 3 is fair.
Yeah, I was trying to wonder why the Sharps are betting the Giants so heavily. Like, do they think Saquon Barkley will revert to his previous form? You know, I mean, he hasn't played well since that injury, but he's so talented that he could just bounce back and have a good game. Like, he could just dominate if he gets healthy. He just hasn't been himself, but it could happen. It's kind of like reminds me of like Alvin Kamara. Remember against Atlanta, he was just dreadful, and then against the Buccaneers, he just went off and kind of dominated the game. So maybe they think Barkley could break some long runs, or maybe they think there's going to be a backdoor cover. You mentioned the Lions game. That could happen. Green Bay's defense blows lots of coverages. Maybe they think the Packers are overrated, which I would agree with. The Packers are just not as good as people think they are. But still, it's not like none of this is going to get me to bet the Giants. Like I still like the Packers. And something else that I brought up in the Saints-Falcons game applies here, I think. I think there might be tons of Packer fans in the stands in the Meadowlands. I mean, why would the Giants fans go to watch their team? Their team's dreadful. Like, so I think there's a chance that there might be more Packer fans in the stands than Giants fans, which should help Green Bay. I'm just, I'm going to be on Green Bay. I just don't know about betting into all this public action and fading the Sharps. Something's up here. There's so much money, professional money coming in on the Giants that I feel like they have to know something. Like maybe someone knows that Aaron Rodgers is like hurt or like something crazy like that. So I'm just going to avoid this and see what happens. But it wouldn't surprise me if the Packers won 53-17, like TJ says.
Yeah, and that short money is definitely concerning because the last time I was on the wrong side of one of these bets where the line just looks so lopsided to me was Buffalo against Cleveland, and that was a public dog pick. And I think my pick ended up pushing in that one, but it was like, it could be a trap line. So I don't know if this one's supposed to be a trap line.
Yeah, it looks suspicious to me. So I'm curious. I hope I find out what's going on. And if I do, I'll let you guys know, but I don't know. Next game, Redskins at the Panthers. This line open up Panthers minus 9.5. It's up to 10. Decent amount of action on the Panthers, but nothing crazy. So who do you like in this game?
I like the Panthers for the sole reason of Christian McCaffrey. There's no one on Washington's defense that can contain him. Like, even if he doesn't get going between the tackles, the Redskins don't quite have the talent at linebacker to cover him, or they don't have anyone that can really match up with him from the secondary without creating holes back there. Quentin Dunbar will be able to erase whichever the top Panthers receivers he guards, whether it's DJ Moore or Curtis Samuel. I imagine they'd put him on more often than not. But still, there's just not enough talent in that secondary to contain the receivers and Christian McCaffrey. I think minus 10. I'm not wild about that line, especially with Kyle Allen playing. He can be prone to turnovers at some points. But the Redskins defense, I just don't think will be able to do anything there. And their offense has not been good at all this year. Since week 6 against the Dolphins, they have 2 offensive touchdowns. Both came in garbage time in the fourth quarter against the Jets. Last week, they scored 19 points to barely beat Jeff Driscoll. at home, and their touchdown came on a 91-yard kick return touchdown by Steven Sims, a play which he dropped the ball and somehow scored. So without that ridiculous effort, they might have lost to Jeff Driscoll, which is insane. So I have no faith in the Redskins putting up anything on this Carolina defense. So I will stick with the Panthers, but I'm probably only going to bet one unit on this game because I'm not a huge believer in Kyle Allen, even though he looked great last week.
Yeah, someone who bet heavily on the Redskins last week. I have to tell you how frustrated I was to watch Dwayne Haskins play. He missed 3 touchdowns, and he missed several other receivers. He looked lost in the pocket. He was throwing off his back foot. Just doesn't look like he's like remotely ready to play. And I think the Redskins will be a lot better with Case Keenum right now. Fortunately, they have to keep going with Haskins to see what they have. So it's hard for me to kind of see the Redskins sticking with the Panthers because I think the Panthers are a lot better. Although DVOA it says Carolina is now the 28th best team in the NFL. They're down from 27 last week. So apparently they weren't convinced that that they should have beaten the Saints if it wasn't for that field goal. So my concern here for the Panthers is that I think there's a chance that they might be lethargic here after losing to the Saints. So they lost their 6th game, which is a big deal in the NFC. If this were the AFC, they'd be okay. But the NFC, they're 3 games behind the wild card, the second wild card team, which is Minnesota. So they have to gain 3 games on Minnesota, which is going to be tough. So if the players think that they're eliminated from the playoffs, they could just be a no-show in this game. They could just show up flat. We could see like a 13-10 game where like the Redskins eke it out because the Panthers just turn the ball over and the defense doesn't care. But I don't know. I see Ron Rivera also kind of selling them on running the table and finishing 10-6. And I think if they finish 10-6, they'll have a decent chance of making the playoffs. Look at I don't know who wins the tiebreaker between them and Minnesota, but I could see Kirk Cousins having a collapse late in the year. And so I could see Rivera selling them on that. So it really depends on what their psyche is going into this game. I'm going to try to find out. But right now, I just can't bet on this game. I'm going to side with Carolina for now. But depending on what I hear, I think I may change my pick.
Yeah, and I'm kind of buying into the psyche of Ron Rivera getting his team motivated. I think especially where they're playing the Skins and the Falcons the next couple weeks, he might be able to say, listen, guys, we got 2 really winnable games on the table. Let's take care of these and then see where we're at. So we'll see what happens there. But again, I'm not super sold on betting on this game. So if you happen to hear that things are not looking good for them, I will probably not bet even a unit on this.
Yeah, I definitely hear that. Next game, so we've gotten some requests to talk about the Ravens. So we'll we're just going sequentially on the Vegas board, and then the next game is 49ers at Ravens. This line opened up Ravens -4.5. It's up to 6. Baltimore had a very impressive win Monday night. This line, the advanced line, I should say, was Ravens -4.5, I believe, and now it's all the way up to 6, which is going through a key number. So who do you like this game? I should say the public is split evenly.
Yeah, so I really wanted one of these teams to have a blowout win and one of these teams to have a close loss this past week. They both had blowout wins, so that kind of took away any juice we would get on the line. I know it's moved a little bit in favor of the Ravens, but I'm actually still on the Ravens here. I just think they have everything going right now. They've won their last 4 games by at least 17 points each. I do think that the 49ers defense, if there is a defense in football that can slow Lamar Jackson down, they might be able to do it. I just don't know if they have enough talent at linebacker to get it done with Quan Alexander hurt. Fred Warner has been good this year, but Alexander is really one of their better linebackers there. So I just think that the Ravens will keep this going against the 49ers, and Lamar Jackson's scrambling ability, I think, should help him to negate the San Francisco pass rush a little bit. He'll be able to get out of some situations that should be sacks for a normal quarterback or even a slightly less mobile quarterback. So I'm going tentatively with the Ravens here. It's probably going to be a 1 to 2 unit play because I don't love the line here. I think there's a very good chance that the 49ers could keep this close. And if they can figure out a way to limit Lamar Jackson, I could be wrong on this, but I'm not willing to bet against the Ravens at this point because the last few weeks they've been easy money.
Yeah, they definitely have been. We got a question for you, TJS. As a Pats fan, do the Ravens scare you this year?
Yes, the Ravens do scare me this year. The Chiefs scared me last year, and it was pretty close. I think with Isaiah Wynn back, we'll talk more about that when the Patriots are on board. I think that I think the Patriots are in better shape than they were, but the Ravens definitely could figure out a way to beat the Patriots. But Bill Belichick's also really good at adjusting. I know he has trouble against mobile quarterbacks, so it would be an interesting battle to see if those two do meet. But it's definitely a threat.
Yeah, I hear that Belichick guy is pretty good at coaching, so I think he might figure something out. But you're right; he does have struggles with the mobile quarterbacks, so we'll see. Hopefully, they do meet in the AFC Championship. That'll be awesome. Should be a great game, and I think definitely more competitive than the first one because if you remember in the first one, John Harbaugh had more time to prepare for that game. And it was in Baltimore. I mean, granted, it might be in Baltimore as well. We'll see. But right now, the Patriots have the better record, so it'll be in New England, and that'll give the Patriots an advantage. So, yeah, we'll see. It'll be important for them to get a home field advantage. As for this game, I think this line's a little too high. Like I made this line Baltimore -4.5. Now it's 6. The 49ers are one of the best teams in the NFL, and for one of the best teams in the NFL to be 6-point underdogs, I think I just think that's too good to pass up. The 49ers defense is so good, and I think that the name of the game for stopping these elite quarterbacks, we saw it with Brady in the 2 Super Bowl losses against the Giants, is to pressure the quarterback without blitzing, and the 49ers can do that with their great defensive line. And I just think I feel like they should be able to get to Lamar Jackson, especially with the center out, Matt Scorer. He got injured, and now he's going to be out. I think the 49ers will pressure Lamar Jackson, and with their great defensive backs, they should be able to maybe get a turnover or force some incompletions. It's not like Baltimore has a great receiving core. They have Marquise Brown and a bunch of scrubs. So I think the 49ers could keep this game close. Wouldn't surprise me if Baltimore blew them out because they've been a buzzsaw, but I'm going to take the Niners. I don't think I'm going to bet this game because, like you said, Baltimore has been easy money, and it's so tough. It's so tough to go against them right now. But I think that I like the Niners.
Yeah, that's totally a fair bet. And part of me really wanted to bet the Niners because I agree with you. I think this line's a little bit too high, but I'm gonna keep being on the Lamar train until it stops giving, and that could be this week. I will say that, but. They've been great for me lately, so I have trouble letting go when I have something good.
Yeah, I get the sense most people would agree with that. So it's surprising that not more of the money is on the Ravens. I thought that this would be lopsided. I thought like we get like 75% action on Baltimore, but we're not. So weird. This is very strange. Maybe it'll change later in the week. And if it does go to like 75 to 80% Baltimore, I'm probably going to bet on the Niners just to go against the public. The next game, the Titans at the Colts. This line opened up Colts -3.5, down to 2.5. Looks like the Titans are a public underdog. So you kind of know where I'm going with this game. So I hope we're on the same side.
We are. I looked at this line and I was kind of surprised. I thought it would be moving in the opposite direction, but it's going down. And the Colts being 2.5 home favorites against the Titans is surprising. I will say Ryan Tannehill has been very good this year, and I give him a lot of credit. It looks like he really just needed a change of scenery, and Tennessee's provided him with that. But the Colts are the superior team here. I mean, if you look at the Colts, they haven't been like a sexy pick the last 4 weeks. They're 1-3, and but those games have been decided in very close and or weird fashion. So you got the missed Vinatieri kick caused them to lose in Pittsburgh. Then Brian Hoyer had to start, and he laid an egg against the Dolphins. Then they blew out the Jaguars by 20, and then they just had a 3-point road loss against the Texans, in which they played relatively well on the defensive side of the ball, but couldn't quite get it done on offense. So I think the Colts are the right side here. We're getting the 3, which is a key number, and I just think that with their run game playing so well, and with Leonard Fournette having just gashed the Titans, I think Jonathan Williams could have a huge game. And I don't know. I don't think Marlon Mack's going to be ready yet, but the run game should be great for the Colts. They can do that and allow Brissett to manage. I think they win this game. Most likely result is by a field goal, but we're getting that field goal. So I love the Colts here. I'll probably bet 2, 3, maybe even 4 units on this one if the line continues to drop. But they're due for a win too. They're due for another nice win.
Yeah, I love the Colts. They're one of my 3 5-unit picks this week. All the reasons you mentioned are legitimate. I mean, they'd be more than -3 if Brian Hoyer didn't start those 2 games, because they would have won those 2 games. So instead of 6-5 right now, they'd be 8-3. And if an 8-3 team is hosting these 6-5 Titans, I think the Colts are like -4, -4.5, or less, something like that. So we're getting good value, line value with the Colts. The advanced spread, as I said, was -3.5. DVOA says this line should be Colts -4. I made this line Colts -6. So I'm kind of more bullish on the Colts. I really like Indianapolis. I love their overall roster. And I love Frank Reich. And by the way, Frank Reich is having extra time to prepare for this game. It's 9 days rest, so he should have a great game plan going. And the Titans just lost Cameron Wake for the year, so he's going to be out. He's been having a great season despite being like 80 years old. Like, he's still getting it done. But unfortunately, he's lost for the year, and now he's their best pass rusher, so he's gone. So that'll only help the Colts. And T.Y. Hilton should be healthier. He wasn't quite himself in the first game. I think that's why they lost. I mean, they lost at the very end to the Texans, but he had 2 drops on 3rd downs in the 4th quarter. He just didn't look healthy. But with 9 days to get healthier, he should be better. And as long as he plays, I mean, I'm going to be on the Colts. It just seems like such a great play.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And I was not on the Colts last week. You were. But one thing I did bet last week, and I just have to bring this up because it was ridiculous. I bet on a Jacoby Brissett rushing touchdown at plus 550 odds. And it happened like in the first half. And I was at the NBC offices when it happened. And I like jumped out of my desk and I had been talking to Tom Curran, and I almost accidentally punched him in the chest. So it was a great moment when Jacoby Brissett delivered that.
Yeah, that was awesome. Congrats on that. Tell Tom I said hi. I spoke to him a long time ago, but I haven't spoken to him recently. A question here from Richard E. Can the Panthers make the playoffs? What has to happen? I guess they have to win a lot, and the Vikings have to lose a lot.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much the only way it happens, right? They have to win like almost all their games, and the Vikings have to go like 1-4 throughout the rest of the season. I never remember how many weeks we're into the season or how many games are left. So, but 1-4 from the Vikings and undefeated from the Panthers would definitely get you into the playoffs.
Yeah, I don't know what the tiebreakers are with them, because I don't believe they played this year. I could be mistaken, but I don't think they played this year.
I don't think they did.
Yeah, so I don't know what the tiebreakers are, but yeah, I mean, Kirk Cousins could easily collapse. So I think there's a chance the Panthers make the playoffs for sure, but I wouldn't bet on it right now. And another question before we move on to the next game. Do you think Ryan Tannehill will be franchise tagged? He made them sneakily good. He has. He's been better than Mariota, but they've also played a soft schedule. So I think I would be more cautious on Tannehill. A franchise tag is fine because it's only for 1 year. What do you think?
Yeah, I could see him being tagged. The other option would be like a Jacoby Brissett type deal where it's like, or a Case Keenum type thing where they give him like $20 million over 2 years, but they have an out in the contract. So I could see them doing that. And if he fails, like, they can always draft a successor. I would love to see whatever team drafts Tua Tagovailoa, which I said last week I thought would be the Titans, keep Tannehill around so that like Tannehill could start and then Tua could get healthy. So if Tua went to the Chargers, maybe Tannehill would be there if Rivers isn't there. And if Tannehill stayed with the Titans, maybe Tua comes there. So that's my my main dream right now.
Yeah, that makes sense. The Chargers, of course, have the position, the inside position to get Tagovailoa because of the record. But if they don't like him, he could definitely fall to the Titans. The next game is Eagles at the Dolphins. Eagles open up -9. It's up to 10 in some books. Lots of money on the Eagles. So who do you like in this game?
I do like the Eagles. I'm kind of not upset, but like I wish that this line wasn't moving right now. I get that they're playing the Dolphins, but I thought it was a pretty solid line on them. They haven't been good on offense the past 6 or 7 quarters they played, but they've been without Lane Johnson, without Alshon Jeffrey, and without Jordan Howard. It sounds like I think Jeffrey's coming back this week. I'm not sure about Howard. I don't think he'll be back. And but the big one, obviously, is Johnson. They're so much better with Johnson on the field. It sounded like the team was hopeful he'd play this week. If he plays, I really like this line for the Eagles because I think their offense is going to be much better with him on the field, and they'll be able to carve up the Dolphins. I also think the Eagles are going to be motivated in this one no matter what because they'll know what the result of the Cowboys game is. If the Cowboys win, the Eagles are going to need to win to keep pace with the Cowboys and, really fight for that NFC East crown. And if the Cowboys lose, the Eagles can win, and then they'll have the same record as the Cowboys, which would be huge for them as well. So I think they'll be motivated for that. The Dolphins really aren't playing for anything. The only thing I'm waiting on to decide my unit count is the injury report. If Lane Johnson is out, this may be a no bet for me, even with the line looking good, just because the Eagles' offense is so bad without Johnson. But if he plays, I may put as many as like 3 units on this.
Yeah. So the injuries you mentioned are obviously very key. Lane Johnson and Alshon Jeffrey. I was so tilted about Jeffrey Sunday morning because I the other game I lost in the Super Contest was the Eagles, and when I saw Johnson was out, I was kind of dubious in them, and then I saw Jadeveon Clowney was going to be injured too, so I'm like maybe those negate each other. But then when Jeffrey was ruled out Sunday morning, like on Friday they said he was going to play, and so when I saw that, it was the first thing I saw when I woke up because I checked my phone and I saw that Jeffrey was going to be out, and I was so pissed. And not a surprise that the Eagles couldn't score with like their top 3 receivers out, and their the right tackle, the best right tackle in the NFL, out, and then they lost Brandon Brooks to an illness, which was I guess anxiety. His anxiety resurfaced, so. We don't know if he's going to play. So, those are all the main injuries. But there is one more, and that would be Carson Wentz, who injured his hand late in the game. So we don't know if he's going to be healthy. We don't know if he's going to be 100%. So I'd be cautious to bet the Eagles because, you're going to be betting into all this public money with a potentially injured quarterback. So that's tough, but I would still take the Eagles because the Dolphins are so terrible. I like the motivational angles you mentioned. One thing I'll add to that is that it's kind of like the other 2 games we talked about where the opposing fans will raid the stands. I can't see how there aren't going to be less than 75% of the people in the stands favoring the Eagles. Like Philadelphia fans travel as well as any team, and they'll be going to Miami. There are definitely Eagles fans living in Miami. The crowd's going to be full of green, and that's going to really hurt the Dolphins. And I think with the Eagles pass rush against the Miami offensive line, we can see Ryan Fitzpatrick finally have one of the games we've been waiting for, where he throws like 5 interceptions and like 2 pick sixes. So even if Wentz is injured, like I could still see the Eagles covering the spread. I just don't want to bet on a double-digit road favorite where the quarterback's not healthy.
Yeah, that's fair. And I totally forgot to mention the Wentz injury, and I have it in my notes. My thing is, like, if Wentz is hurt bad enough, I wish that they just wouldn't play him because Josh McCown is a pretty good backup. Obviously, that would never happen because if he's healthy enough to get on the field, he'll play. But yeah, for the reasons you just said, I would still stick with the Eagles.
Yeah, we have a question for you. Did you play football at all?
I actually did not play football at all. You hit the nail on the head, though. I do look like a linebacker. I'm a big dude. I'm like 5'11". Like if I had muscle mass, I'd probably be pretty heavy. So I'd probably play linebacker, maybe fullback. I'd be a 2-way player. I love fullback, so I'd probably want to play football. I'd be like crying, like, guys, let me on the field. Let me play fullback.
Nice. Arthur's pointing out the Ravens are Super Bowl favorites right now. Not a surprise at all after that Monday night game. All right, the next game is the Buccaneers at the Jaguars. This line opened up Jaguars -3.5. It's down to 1. Actually, pick them in some books. Ton of money on Tampa, like more than 80%. So, are you with the public on this game?
I don't want to be, but the problem is there's no motivation for the Jaguars at this point. They've been crushed every week the last 3 weeks. I think I think they've lost by at least 20 points in 3 games. The Buccaneers are terrible against the spread. They're like 3-8 this year, which is the worst mark in the league. So this game is just terrible for betting purposes because the right side looks like the public dog. And I just don't think that the Jaguars are going to come ready to play. I would think that they're going to want to quit on this season because it doesn't look like they're going anywhere. I don't know what Doug Marone's like in the locker room right now, but I don't know if he's going to be able to get them motivated. And their defense has just regressed. We're finally starting to see what they look like without Jalen Ramsey. That was last week against the Titans. The issues in pass coverage finally showed up in addition to their inability to stop the run. So I think the Buccaneers should be able to beat them here. Things just don't seem to be trending right for Jacksonville, but I can't bring myself to bet on a public dog where the line is moved this much. I am going to be Bucs +1, but I'm not betting this game. I can't do it. But this is like one of my least favorite games of the week.
Yeah, when I first saw the spread, I thought it was going to be heavy on Jacksonville because, the Buccaneers are a public dog. The advanced spread on this game was Jacksonville -4.5. It's a ton of line value with the Jaguars. But something I learned while kind of researching and practicing my handicapping over the previous summer was that when teams are effectively eliminated from the playoffs, they just tend to be no-shows for the next like 2 or 3 weeks. And usually they only start showing up unless they play like a divisional rival, like they want to beat. Like an example from last year is like the Jaguars, who they were pretty much eliminated, the year after they went to the AFC Championship, and they kind of mailed some games in. But when they played the Steelers at home, they really tried hard and they almost won the game. Another example is like Denver, where they were hot for a while, and then they lost to the Niners. It was kind of like a fluke game where they lost it to Nick Mullins, and then they hosted the Browns the next week, and they were just a no-show. They put forth no effort into that game, and I could see the same thing happening here. Although I do wonder, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this. Do you think the Jaguar players think they're eliminated from the playoffs because they're 4-7 now? But they're only 2 games back of the sixth spot in the division or in the playoff race in the AFC. But they're behind a bunch of teams though. Like there are like 3 or 4 teams that are like 6-5 or 5-6, and then there's some that are 4-7. So after the 2 blowout losses, do you think the Jaguars are going to mail this in?
I think they might. I really do. And they're like 11th in the AFC playoff standings right now. And I know it's only two games back right now, but just where they've been blown out so badly in 3 consecutive weeks, I kind of think that they're just going to think like, oh, wow, well, we've been blown out by some teams that aren't good, but like they got killed by Ryan Tannehill and the Titans last week. And, that was supposed to be, I think the spread on that one was like Titans -3, -3.5, and the Jaguars lost by like 30. So I just think that they're not going to want to put in too much effort at this point because they know that they're not really making the playoffs. And even if they do, they're probably a one and done.
Yeah, I think so too. I wish there was a team that was 7-4 that was the 6th seed right now. Like I think in that case, they would definitely kind of mail this in. But the fact that they're kind of only 2 games out might make me wonder that they might be buying into running the table and kind of getting the final spot. Like I think if they finish 9-7, they should be able to get in. I like maybe they'll need some help in the tiebreakers, but I can't see the 6th seed being 10-6 or better. So I just wonder about that, but I don't know. Like I think there's a legitimate chance they just mail this game in. So I don't want to bet the Jaguars, but then again, all that public money on Tampa, I don't want to bet Tampa either. So this next game I like a lot more. Bengals, or say the Jets at the Bengals. The sign open up -3.5. It's still 3.5. So who do you like in this game?
I love the Jets. I locked this in for 5 units immediately. I cannot believe the Jets are only favored by 3.5 against Cincinnati. Like, do people not realize that Cincinnati hasn't won a game this year? Like, I know they've played somewhat okay in recent weeks, but the spread is just too low. The Jets have been playing out of their mind good for the last 3 games. They just crushed the Raiders like by 31 points. And I know that game was closer in the first half. And, it may not have been as big of a blowout, but they were able to pile on. Sam Darnold looks good. You mentioned Beachum earlier. He's had a massive impact. And the Bengals rank dead last in defense. So how are they going to be able to stop this passing unit and this rushing attack, which is looking better with Le'Veon Bell now getting chances out of the backfield? So I'll give you a little bit of a fun math stat, which, again, this should never actually be used to justify picks, but I do this anyway sometimes. So the Raiders beat the Bengals 2 weeks ago by 7 points. Then last week, the Jets beat the Raiders by 31. So, obviously, the transitive property would say, the Jets should win by 38. They won't win by 38, but they certainly can win by 3.5. So I'm going Jets minus 3.5, 5-unit play. One of my biggest plays of the year. And I want to just say, against a 3.5-point spread this year, the Bengals would be 2-9. So it's not like they're even good against this type of spread. I know that also is somewhat illogical, but still.
Oh man, we're on different sides here. I like the Bengals quite a bit. When the spread came out, I was with you. I was going to be heavy on the Jets. Sure, the Jets would crush Ryan Finley easily. Ryan Finley's terrible. I think probably the worst quarterback we've seen since Luke Falk starting the NFL. Which is saying a lot because we've had Brandon Allen, who's just an abomination last week. And Dwayne Haskins has been awful. But Ryan Finley just doesn't look like he belongs in the NFL at all. Which is surprising to me because you look in the preseason, but he was just so bad in these games. And it just looks like the NFL is just too fast for him right now. So it was kind of made me wonder. I'm maybe they should bench him because he just doesn't look prepared to play right now. And that's exactly what they did. They benched Ryan Finley. And they went to Andy Dalton. And this line was 4. It was Jets minus 4 when Finley was slated to start. And it's only 3.5 with Andy Dalton. So this is saying that Andy Dalton, who's gotten the Bengals to the playoffs for several seasons, I know he's not great. He's obviously not a great quarterback. He's not even a good quarterback. He's mediocre, maybe subpar. They're saying Andy Dalton is a half point better than Ryan Finley. It's come on, really? I think that the Bengals have a legitimate chance to win with Andy Dalton. I know that they lost a bunch of games with him early in the year, but they didn't have Cordy Glenn, and Cordy Glenn's back. And Glenn played last week, and Glenn's absence was one of the reasons why the Bengals were losing so much because they had such a horrible offensive line. Obviously their defense sucks too, but their offensive line was just so bad. But with Glenn back, now that all of a sudden they don't have to use John Jerry at left tackle. They can use an actual left tackle to protect Andy Dalton. And who knows, maybe with Dalton back and Glenn back, maybe AJ Green plays too. We never know. I'm not going to count on that, but I think it could happen. And there might be some motivation for the Bengals to win this game. I think that they know that this might be one of their few chances to escape 2019 with a victory. The Jets still have some issues defensively. They're playing a lot better now. With Blessuan Austin at corner, he's great. The run defense is awesome, but their linebackers are so bad. And so I think the Bengals could take advantage of that using Joe Mixon and Bernard as receivers, and maybe they throw to Tyler Eifert a little bit against the linebackers. So, the Bengals. They could have beaten the Steelers last week, and I think the Steelers are probably as good as the Jets right now. I think I'd rate them close to even. So the fact that they almost beat the Steelers with Ryan Finley, now they get Andy Dalton as an upgrade. I think the Bengals could win this game, but the Jets could win this game too. And I think the most likely result of this game is the Jets winning by 3, and at plus 3.5, we get the Bengals to cover. So. I like the Bengals. If it's a 3-unit pick, I might go to 4.
Yeah, and I'm just gonna have to completely disagree with you on this one. I like Andy Dalton as much as the next guy. I think he's fine, but my issue was never that much on the offense, just the defensive side of the ball for me. The reason that Cincinnati was able to hang with Pittsburgh last week is because Pittsburgh's offense is so bad. It was so bad with Mason Rudolph that they had to go to Duck Hodges, and Hodges' one big completion to James Washington is probably what won the game there. But I don't think Cincinnati has the defense personnel to get to the Jets, do anything to bug Sam Darnold and those guys. with how they're playing. So I think they're going to be able to win. I think that they'll get enough stops, and where they can render Andy Dalton one-dimensional because their run defense is so good. I think the Jets are going to do better, but it'll be interesting to see what happens now because now I'm less sure in my pick, but I've already locked in. I'm staying confident in it, but I'm at least a little bit less sure than I once was.
Nice. Yeah. Martin says, love it when you see disagree. I mean, disagreements, it's all what sports are about. That's why, that's why PTI is the best show on ESPN ratings wise. I mean, you have two guys just arguing about sports. It's like, it's great. And I should clarify, someone says, did you say the Bengals and Jets are equal? No, I said at least I think I said the Steelers and Jets are equal. Obviously the Jets offense is better than the Steelers, but the Steelers defense is great. It's a lot better than the Jets defense. So, I mean, I know that it's hard to say because the Steelers almost lost to the Bengals, but again, that was a Finley, and I think Dalton gives them a chance. We'll see. I'll be more confident if AJ Green plays. If Green plays, I'm going to go to 4 units for sure, maybe in 5, like that. They'll basically have everyone back if Green plays. So.
Yeah, I wouldn't hold my breath on that. I personally don't think AJ Green's playing the rest of the year, but I've been known to be wrong, so we'll see.
I wouldn't bet on that either. I in fact, on one of our fantasy shows, someone asked if they should keep Green, and I said they should cut him. So and Kenny was on with me, and he agreed. So I don't see him playing, but I kind of get the feeling that like Green might be like, all right, Dalton's back, Glenn's back. Maybe we'll get the whole band together again for one more run, and then I'll sit out again. So we'll see. All right, the next game is it's the last of the early games. The Browns at the Steelers. This line opened up. What did it open up as? It was like a pick 'em, and now the Browns are favored by 2. So who do you like in this game?
I like the Steelers in this one. I think they'll be out for revenge after they lost to the Browns in Cleveland with all the Myles Garrett escapades and all that stuff. And the Browns haven't won in Pittsburgh since 2003. You might need to check me on that. I did look back, and it looked like I'm fairly certain they haven't won in Pittsburgh since then. So I don't like them being road favorites here, even with their offense looking like it came to life. Again, we shouldn't read into that too much because they just played Miami, and the Steelers are going to have a new quarterback, and we'll see if Hodges can be a little bit better than what Mason Rudolph did. And more importantly, though, their run game should be better than it was last time they played the Browns because they had Connor for half of the game, but he wasn't fully healthy. They have Samuels and Benny Snell now. Even if Connor doesn't play, Snell should be better between the tackles. So we'll see what happens there. But I really like the Steelers. I'll probably go somewhere between 2 and 4 units on this one.
Yeah, this is one of my 5 unit picks. I think this line is crazy. You remember 2 weeks ago, the Browns were at home and they were 3-point favorites. So if you transition to Pittsburgh, the Steelers should be 3-point favorites. And that's what the advanced line was. The advanced line in this game was Pittsburgh -3. But because of a win at Miami, and I guess Miami and the Steelers almost lost to the Bengals, this line has moved 5 points. It's like, are you kidding me? And in that game that the Browns are favored by 3, Myles Garrett played. And so Myles Garrett's not going to be on the field this time. And I don't know. I think Duck Hodges is better than Mason Rudolph. Mason Rudolph sucks. I just don't understand why people would downgrade the Steelers because of Hodges. I think that, Hodges will start. Yeah, I think that Hodges could be better. Like, he's going to take more shots. Mason Rudolph was just dink and dunk, where Hodges kind of went downfield. He connected with that touchdown that you mentioned with Washington, and he also drew 2 pass interferences. So I think this is an upgrade for the Steelers, and the Steelers they play much better at home usually. So I like Pittsburgh here a lot. They're a 5 unit play for me.
Yeah, I think it's pretty easy money on Pittsburgh here. Anytime that 2 maybe not equal but somewhat equal teams, the road team's the favorite, just always bet on the home team that has not being favored, because I think that the Steelers could easily win this one outright.
Yeah. Field G says, been trying to reach out to me to collaborate. If you're interested, my email is on the bottom of the website, so send me an email. If you send me something, it might have gone to spam or something, so I guess try again, or maybe I'll look in spam. All right, that's it for the early games. Let's go to the late afternoon games. I already did the plug for DraftKings, so I guess I don't have to do that anymore. The first late afternoon games is the Rams at the Cardinals. The sign opened up Rams -4. It's down to 3. It was sitting at 4 yesterday, and after that Monday night debacle, it's now 3. Looks like equal action. So who do you like in this game?
This line is still way wrong. I mean, it should not be this. So I want the Cardinals here. The Cardinals have been one of the league's best teams against the spread. They're 7-3. It's actually tied for best in the NFL. And the Rams are, for some reason, continuing to be overhyped. I would have thought the Monday night loss would have moved the line a little bit more, as it should have, because the Rams have been overrated in almost every single game they've played. I feel like we talk about this every single week. So I don't see why they should be 3-point road favorites over the Cardinals. The Cardinals they're not a great team, but they just played the 49ers really close twice. Seems like they've been bringing their best game for divisional rivals, and they may sense some blood in the water, a chance to, for Cliff Kingsbury and Kyler Murray to get like a real signature win, because people really hold the Rams in a high regard. So if they're able to beat them, even at home, it would be like, hey, look at that win for the Cardinals. So I also think Murray's mobility against the Rams defense, obviously he's not as good as Lamar Jackson is mobility-wise, but if he can get outside and do a little bit of what Jackson was doing, kind of make them work around the edges, I think that could give the Rams some trouble. So I love the Cardinals here. I'm going to be on the Cardinals +3. I'll probably go 3 or 4 units on this one. I will just continue to fade the Rams as long as Jared Goff is playing as bad as he is.
Yeah, Goff's been terrible. His offensive line is the worst in the NFL if you exclude the Dolphins. And Arizona can bring pressure with Chandler Jones and Terrell Suggs. They do that well, and they also stop the run, so they should be able to hold off Todd Gurley from doing a lot like he did 2 weeks ago. And I feel like the Rams just have to be so deflated right now after that Monday night game. I mean, they just got like embarrassed by that Baltimore team, and it's going to be hard for them to recover on a short week like this. Usually, when teams get blown out on Monday night, they tend to struggle the following week because it's just not enough time to make the appropriate adjustments. And the Rams need to make a lot of adjustments, and I just don't think they have the manpower to do it. They just can't block, and they're just fundamentally flawed in that way. And we've seen with Jared Goff, when he gets pressured a lot, he gets frazzled, and I feel like he's gonna have a couple of turnovers in this game. And I think you're right. This is a big game for Arizona to kind of like you said, put a feather in the cap for the season and gain momentum for 2020. And they've been good. Like they were up big against the Niners before their bye, and they almost won in Tampa. So, like, if they won those 2 games, they would have a good record right now. They'd be 5-5-1, kind of, sort of in the mix for a wild card. But they're 3-7-1. But if they were 5-5-1, they would not be 3-point home underdogs. In fact, I made the sign Arizona -3, and so did DVOA. DVOA says Arizona -3 is correct as well. So when I saw this was Arizona +4, I thought I might make this my December pick of the month. Now it's +3, so like I'm not as in love with it, but I can still see myself going there. I still might make this my pick of the month. So I love Arizona. It's my third of the 5 unit picks.
Yeah, and it just seems like easy money. Like you said, like I probably, like at best for the Rams, I would have made this maybe a pick 'em. But I get the case for Arizona being -3 in this one too. So I'll be all over this one. This is one of my favorite games of the week.
Yeah, same here. We have a question: who wins the division? Who gets the wild card in the NFC West?
I'm going with the 49ers winning the division. I know they have a little bit of a tougher schedule down the stretch, but Seahawks, they're just weaker on defense than the 49ers are. Russell Wilson really carries that Seahawks team. That's why a lot of people in the MVP debate will choose Russell Wilson solely because he has really carried that team. Lamar Jackson's supporting cast is a little bit better. I still think right now Jackson is the MVP, but you can make a case for Wilson. So I'll go 49ers as the division and Seahawks as the wild card.
Yeah, same here. I think that's going to happen. And the Niners, they they kind of struggled for 2 games because they didn't have Kittle and Emmanuel Sanders got hurt. But now that they're both healthy, I think we just saw what they're capable of. So I just think they're a lot better than Seattle. Next game is Raiders at the Chiefs. The Chiefs open up -9 up to 10. So who do you like in this game?
I like the Raiders. I think this is like a little bit. The Chiefs are getting a little bit of credit because they were off last week and the Raiders got absolutely crushed by the Jets. But we kind of saw that one coming. The Raiders that was a very big look ahead moment for them where they were looking ahead to this game. I think the Chiefs will be better than them. I think the Chiefs win this game. I think Andy Reid coming out of the bye will have a good game plan ready. But divisional games tend to be close, especially rivalry games. And the Chiefs might be looking ahead to the Patriots a little bit in this one. I don't think they'll overlook the Raiders entirely, but it may be in the back of their minds, like after this one, if we take care of business, we get to take on the Patriots. So I think that will work to a little bit of a disadvantage. And the Raiders are going to want to prove after last week, like getting crushed by the Jets, they're going to want to be like, hey, we can stay competitive. Let's look at what we can do against the Chiefs. So I don't think the Raiders win this one, but I think the +10 is just too high for me. I think about -7 for the Chiefs would have been right. So I won't bet a ton on this one because Andy Reid coming out of a bye, I think, is solid. He's a good coach. But I'll probably bet a unit or two on the Raiders.
Yeah, I don't know. Like the Raiders just aren't a good team. Like they got crushed by the Jets. They barely beat Ryan Finley at home. They barely beat Phillip Rivers, Chargers, who I believe the Chargers had Russell Okung in that game, or maybe they didn't. I forget. But like it's just like the Raiders. I feel like they built their record on kind of like misleading wins. Like remember in London they beat the Bears, and we thought that was a good win, and the Bears just have sucked recently. And like I just think this team has been overrated. I think I love their offensive line, but their defense just sucks, and they have such big problems in the defensive backfield. I don't know how they're going to cover Tyreek Hill and Sammy Watkins, and then you have the linebackers against Travis Kelce. Like the Chiefs just have such a great matchup against the Raiders. I know that Josh Jacobs should run on the Chiefs, but that won't happen if the Chiefs get out to a big lead. Like if they're up 21 or 28-7, I just can't see the Raiders stopping them. So that could happen, and if that happens, then Josh Jacobs won't be able to run, and I could just see this being a blowout. The computer model says Kansas City should be favored by 14. So they believe that this will be higher scoring. Like I'm worried a little bit about the backdoor cover, but I think Andy Reid coming off a bye, like he's so good with extra time to prepare. He's one of the better coaches at preparing teams to play. I know he has his faults, like in the 2-minute drill, time management. Like he's so bad at that, but he's so good at preparing teams to play, especially if he has extra time. So I'm going to be on the Chiefs for like a unit or two.
Yeah, and my only counter to the Reid argument, because totally get where you're coming from, is that I think Gruden's just such a good motivator that he'll have his team ready to at least battle in this one. That could also just be like a first half thing where it's close in the first half somehow unexpectedly, but then the Chiefs could pull away. So I'm by no means confident in this game. I just thought 10 was a little bit too high, but your computer models probably convinced me that I won't bet on this game.
Yeah, what you said is like true. Like Gruden is really good at that. Remember last year the Raiders they got out to that lead against the Rams in week 1, and then they blew that lead, and they did that a lot during the year. I think going into the fourth quarter, they actually had like a decent record. Just in the fourth quarter, they just ran out of gas, and that defense is really shorthanded. So I just don't know how they're going to stay with the Chiefs. The last of the late afternoon games, the Chargers at the Broncos. The sign to open up Chargers -1. It's up to 2.5. Tons of money on the Chargers, almost 90%. Are you with the public?
I don't like this game very much. I originally was with the public on this, so I'll stick with that for now. This is kind of a matchup of two bad quarterbacks. Phillip Rivers has thrown 7 interceptions his last 3 games. I should clarify, bad quarterbacks lately. Phillip Rivers is a good quarterback, but he's been very bad lately. And then we got Brandon Allen, who just put up a whopping 3 points against the Bills. Whoop-de-doo there. The big thing is Rivers is only 2-3 in his last 5 in Denver. So I'm not super confident in his ability to win outright here, and they'll need to do that to cover the spread. The big thing that swung me towards the Chargers, at least in terms of picking this for office pool purposes, they may be getting Derwin James back. And if James is back, he should really help their secondary out. And I don't think that the Broncos are really going to be able to throw on the Chargers at all if Derwin James plays. But I don't like this game much, but I'm with the Chargers right now. This is probably one of my least favorites of the week.
Yeah, I didn't know Derwin James might come back. I didn't see anything on that, but I usually don't look at the injury report until Wednesday night. So, I was going to catch that eventually. If that's the case, then I'm going to be in the Chargers with you. As for right now, I'm on Denver. So I think there are several reasons to like Denver. So they were -3 on the advanced line. And so this line has moved 5.5 points. So we're getting good line value with the Broncos. As I said before, there's a ton of money coming in on the Chargers. Juwan James might be back. He was limited all last week. He didn't play, but James being back is going to really improve Denver's offensive line. And then the Chargers might be down 3 offensive linemen if Russell Okung doesn't return. And that's going to be problematic if they're down their top 2 tackles against Von Miller and Malik Reed. That's going to be trouble. So, the Broncos look good, except there's one problem, and that's Brandon Allen, who's just so bad. It's so hard to back him, especially if James plays. Like, if James plays, forget about it. But if James is out, maybe the Broncos will have a chance. The Chargers don't have a good defense without James. So it's going to come down to James, I think. If James is out, I'm going to be on Denver. If James is in, I'm going to be on the Chargers.
Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna say the same thing because I just looked it up. It seems like James should be healthy enough to play this week, but our boy Anthony Lynn just kind of said he has to prove that he's going to be able to play. So once we know that, though, if James isn't playing, I'm taking the Broncos just because of the line movement you mentioned. But I think James will play, so I'll stick with the Chargers for the time being. But I'll definitely announce my pick on Twitter.
Nice. We have a question here. All 8 teams lost after their bye when playing outside the U.S. So, yeah, I think there's a big difference between flying back from London and then flying back to from Mexico City. It's a shorter flight. But I think that's recency bias with the London games, the post-bye London games, because in years past, those teams were 500 against the spread. So I think it's just a fluky result. I wouldn't put any stock into it.
Yeah, no, I probably wouldn't put much stock into that either. That is an interesting stat for sure, though. It's something to monitor going forward, but I wouldn't make any decisions based off it.
Yeah, same thing. Same here. The Sunday night game, Patriots at the Texans. This line opened up Patriots. What did it open up as -4, down to 3. Good amount of action on the Patriots. So are you with the public?
Yeah, I'm with the public. Bill Belichick owns his former assistants, and Bill O'Brien is one of them. So Bill O'Brien, I think, has never won against the Patriots since being the head coach in Houston. I know the Patriots just beat Dallas by 4, and they were way less than 100% on offense. I mean, they were missing Mohamed Sanu, Philip Dorsett. I'm trying to think. There was someone else important was missing in that game. I should know this. I covered
and Brady was banged up too.
That's it. Brady was banged up. How could I forget that? Yeah, his elbow was not feeling well leading into that game. So I think the Patriots should cover this pretty easily. In their last 5 games against the Texans, they've won by 3 or more points every single time. So they'd be 4-0-1 against the spread. I think I just think the Patriots are going to be able to eliminate DeAndre Hopkins with Stephon Gilmore. If they can limit Will Fuller, then this offense really comes on. Can Deshaun Watson find an open receiver? And can Carlos Hyde do anything? The answer to the latter question is probably no. And then can Watson do something? Maybe, but I don't think they have the weaponry to compete with this defense. And the Patriots offense should be in better state. So we'll see what ends up happening.
Yeah, I think this line's too small. I made this line the advanced spread, I should say, was Patriots -4.5. DVOA says Patriots -4, and the computer model says Patriots -7 is correct. And basically, the way that the Patriots have played against the Texans, they always dominate them. I know that Will Fuller is back. Someone mentioned in the chat, and obviously they still have Hopkins, but the Patriots' outside corners are tremendous. That's the heart of their team. They should be able to slow them down. And I think the way to beat the Patriots is to run the ball at them, kind of like Baltimore did. But the Texans don't have a good running game. Like Carlos Hyde's not a good player. He's just like very mediocre. If that, like that might be too kind. And so I think with Brady having an extra week to heal, he should have at least one of those receivers back. And Belichick versus O'Brien, just like forget about it. So I like the Patriots. It's going to be a 2 or 3 unit pick.
Yeah, I'll probably match you with the 2 or 3 units on this one, just on the off chance that the offense isn't as good as anticipated. My dad just asked a question about why there's so many lousy quarterbacks this year. If it's been this way lately or if it's worse. I would say the answer to that is probably there have been so many injuries to top quarterbacks that we've seen a lot more backup play this year. And backup play isn't always good, especially when you're watching Mason Rudolph play every week for the Steelers. So I think that plays a role in that.
Yeah, well, I agree. There have been a lot of bad quarterbacks over the years too. Let's not forget. I have this open just randomly. Let's not forget Austin Davis or Brett Hundley or Bryce Petty or Caleb Haney or Connor Shaw or Jeff Toole or John Beck or John Skelton or Matt McGloin or Scott Tolzien or Sean Mannion or Ryan Lindley or Tom Savage or Tyler Palco or Zach Menberger. I can keep going on and on. I have this spreadsheet open about it's just a list of crappy quarterbacks and their record against the spread. So that's where I'm getting that from. So there have been a lot of bad quarterbacks over the years. I don't think this year is any different. I just think it's kind of like in our minds how bad they are. But there have been so many bad ones over the years. Like it could probably write a book about how many bad quarterbacks there have been. It would be an interesting read.
Be careful, though. Matt McGloin's brother will come at you on Twitter. He did that to me once for an article I wrote that wasn't even about Matt McGloin. It just mentioned him in it. I think I showed that to you. That was like 4 or 5 years ago. It was ridiculous. I don't know how he had to have Googled Matt's name to have found it. So fun story about the McGloin clan there.
I think Matt McGloin's brother needs to get a life. He's just Googling stuff about his brother. All right, the Monday night game, Vikings at the Seahawks. This line opened up -3, and it's still 3. Decent amount of action on the Seahawks, but nothing too significant. So who do you like in this game?
I like the Vikings, believe it or not. Primetime Kirk Cousins still scares me, but the win over the Cowboys, which Kirk Cousins did not play a big role in, I will admit, in primetime on Thursday night, definitely or maybe it wasn't Thursday night. I can't remember. Definitely will sway me.
Night, yeah.
Sunday night. That's right. That'll definitely sway me towards the Vikings in this one. The Seahawks just have a bottom 10 defense, and I feel like the Vikings coming off a bye have the weapons needed to exploit that, especially if Adam Thielen is healthy, because then you're talking about Stephon Diggs, Dalvin Cook, Adam Thielen, and Kyle Rudolph against that defense. That'll give Kirk Cousins plenty of options to target. If Clowney doesn't play too, I think the Vikings are going to be able to really manhandle that Seattle defense. And just Mike Zimmer's coming off a bye. Like, he's such a good head coach. He should have them well prepared for this one. And, Seattle just came off a couple of important wins. The one against the Eagles last week, though, wasn't that impressive. They really should have done a lot better than they did. The Eagles were able to keep it close despite not being able to do anything on offense. So I will go with the Vikings here. I think they could win this one outright. I don't know how many units I'm going to put on this one yet. It probably depends on some of the results of my Thanksgiving games, but I would consider 3 units for sure.
Yeah, that's exactly how many I'm going to bet. Maybe 4, but definitely at least 3. I like the Vikings as well. So you mentioned Mike Zimmer off a bye. He's 11-4 against the spread with extra time to prepare. Just not a surprise. He's one of the best coaches in the NFL. And when you give an elite coach extra time to get ready for a game, like, he's going to have a great game plan. And I think we're going to see that in this game. I agree that they should have their receivers back and they should be able to beat Seattle. The Seahawks, by the way, I think they have some recent misleading results. Like you mentioned, the Eagles game, not a very impressive win. I mean, the Eagles are so banged up, and they still had a chance to win in the fourth quarter. So that wasn't very impressive. I know they beat San Francisco on Monday night, but San Francisco lost Emmanuel Sanders, and they didn't have George Kittle in that game, so they weren't at full strength. And look at what Seattle has done at home this year. They barely beat the Bengals. They almost lost to the Bengals the first week of the season. They would have beaten the Buccaneers, or they would have lost to the Buccaneers if Tampa didn't suffer some injuries in their secondary during that game. They got blown out by Teddy Bridgewater. They got blown out by the Ravens. And their one non-overtime victory at home this year has been against the Rams on the Thursday night. And at the time, we thought that was kind of impressive, but the Rams they've kind of shown their true colors, and we know they're not that very good now. So I think Seattle's overrated. I'm not crazy about Minnesota either, but I think Minnesota is better than Seattle, and I like, as I said before, I like Zimmer off a bye. So I'm going to be 3 or 4 units on the Vikings.
Yeah, and I think this will be another big moment for Kirk Cousins, because the Vikings right now are keeping pace in the divisional race, and if they win and the Packers win, they'll still be keeping pace. But it'll go a long way, one win, to sewing up a wild card spot, because pretty much they would just have to win one of their next 4 after that, and I think they most likely would be in. So I think that'll be in his head too, which hopefully will make him play better as opposed to worse. But you never know.
Yeah. We had a big disagreement, but we both like the Vikings. So kind of, I like to disagree because it's fun, but I also like to be on the same side as you in these big games. So I'm glad we both like the Vikings. They might be one of my super contest picks. We'll see. All right, that's it for this week. Do you have anything to plug?
Just follow me on Twitter at Jacob Camenker. I'll be talking football all week. I'm not working on Thanksgiving for the first time in 3 years because the Redskins aren't playing. So that's nice. But yeah, we'll be covering Redskins and Patriots on Sunday, NBC Sports Boston and Rigo's Rag. So check those out as well.
Nice. Real quick, we got a late question. Who would you pair with the Steelers on a teaser? I like the Steelers a lot in a teaser this week. Who would I pair with? That's tough. I would say right now, if Derwin James doesn't play, I think the Broncos getting them up to 8 or 8.5, I think is good. I think that's where I would go right now, but we'll have to see. I think that's the best one I see right now. Usually with teasers, as I've said before, you want to bet up from 1.5 to 2.5 up past 7, because you want to hit all the key numbers. That's the whole point of a teaser. It's like I see people like teasers and they don't go through, they only go through one key number. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, the whole point of a teaser is to get 3, 4, 6, and 7 in some sort of fashion. So that, I think that's what you want to do, and that's where you get the Steelers. If you go from 2 to 8, you get Steelers losing by 3, 4, 6, and 7, and that's a very high chance of winning. So I like that. And someone's asking about 3-pick parlays. No way. Parlays, the sportsbooks love when people bet parlays, because they almost always lose, and the payouts aren't what they should be. They decrease the payouts. It's every parlay you can do is a sucker bet. Obviously they're good. They're going to win sometimes, and you hear stories about people winning parlays, but I wouldn't do them. Anyway, so I'm at walterfootball.com. Updated picks throughout the week. Updated 2020 mock draft tomorrow, Wednesday morning, and updated fantasy rankings throughout the week as well. So as I said before, hopefully everyone has a great Thanksgiving. You too. Glad you don't have to work on Thanksgiving this year. That's awesome. But yeah, I will talk to you guys next week.
All right. Sounds good. Happy Thanksgiving, Walt.
All right. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.